Most men don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they lack control. They chase comfort. They avoid pressure. They follow every impulse, like it owns them. And then they wonder, why is my life falling apart? Here's the truth no one tells you. If you can't control yourself, you control nothing. 1. How you act when no one is watching decides how you perform when it matters. If you rush everything, just to get it done, moving on autopilot, don't expect to suddenly be calm and in control. When the moment is real, the mind doesn't work like that. There's a simple principle in psychology. Neurons that fire together, wire together. What you repeat in private becomes your default in public. If you train fast, you react fast. If you chase quick relief, you lose control under pressure. You can see this everywhere. A man who procrastinates when no one is watching folds when the deadline is real. A man who can't control small habits won't control big moments. Not because he's weak, but because he's been practicing the wrong pattern for too long. But here's the shift. You can rewire it. When you slow down, when you move with awareness, you're retraining your system. At first, it won't feel natural. Your mind will pull you back to what's easy, fast, familiar. But every time you resist that pull, you take back control. As James Clear said, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You don't become better when it counts. You become what you've trained yourself to be. So if you want control when it matters, start controlling yourself when no one is watching. 2. Discipline is not about motivation, it's about pattern. When you only act when you feel like it, you're training inconsistency. Your brain starts linking action with mood. No mood, no action. That's conditioning. In behavioral psychology, this is called state-dependent behavior. You only perform when the internal state feels right. But real life doesn't wait for your mood. Pressure shows up uninvited. Responsibility doesn't ask how you feel. And if you've trained yourself to depend on motivation, you collapse the moment it's gone. You can see this clearly. A man wakes up tired, he skips what he planned. One day becomes two. Two becomes a pattern. Not because he's incapable, but because he trained himself to negotiate with discomfort. But discipline breaks that loop. You act, regardless of how you feel. You move, even when it's heavy. At first, it feels forced. But repetition rewires identity. Over time, your brain stops asking, "Do I feel like it?" and starts saying, "This is what I do." That's when discipline becomes automatic. 3. If you don't control your impulses, they will control you. Every urge feels urgent. That's how the brain is wired. Dopamine spikes, and your system pushes you to act fast. No thinking, just reaction. That's survival wiring. But in modern life, that same wiring becomes a trap. You feel boredom. You reach for distraction. You feel stress. You escape. You feel desire. You act without thinking. That's not choice. That's compulsion. In neuroscience, this is the limbic system overriding the prefrontal cortex. Emotion overriding control. But control is built in the pause. That small gap between impulse and action. Most people never develop it. They feel, and they move. But a disciplined man notices the urge. And waits. Not long, just enough. A breath. A moment. And in that moment, the brain shifts from reaction to awareness. That's where power is. Because once you can pause, you can choose. 4. Your body trains your mind more than your thoughts do. You can think strong and still act weak. Because the body remembers patterns faster than the mind. Posture, movement, effort. They all send signals back to your brain. In psychology, this is called embodied cognition. Your physical state shapes your mental state. If you constantly choose ease, your system adapts to ease. If you avoid effort, effort starts to feel unnatural. But when you deliberately choose discomfort, your baseline shifts. Cold mornings, hard tasks, controlled breathing. Not for pain, but for training. You're teaching your system I don't break under resistance. And once the body learns that, the mind follows. 5. Comfort feels safe, but it weakens you. The brain is designed to conserve energy. It will always guide you toward what's easy, familiar, predictable. That's efficiency. But comfort, repeated too often, becomes decay. You stop growing. You stop adapting. You stop pushing. And slowly, you lose your edge. This is called hedonic adaptation. What once felt good becomes normal. And you need more, just to feel the same. So you stay in the loop. Easy, comfortable, stuck. But growth never happens there. Growth requires friction, resistance, effort, uncertainty. That's where your system evolves. A man who chooses discomfort on purpose becomes dangerous in a world that avoids it. 6. Your attention is your life. Whatever holds your focus shapes your reality. But most people don't control their attention. They give it away. To noise, to scrolling, to endless stimulation. And the brain adapts. Shorter focus. Lower patience. Weaker control. This is attentional fragmentation. The more you switch, the harder it becomes to stay. And if you can't stay focused, you can't build anything meaningful. Because depth requires time. And time requires attention. A disciplined man protects his focus. He doesn't chase everything. He chooses and stays. And over time, that creates clarity, precision, and control. 7. If you don't trust yourself, nothing else matters. Every time you say you'll do something, and don't, you weaken your own foundation. Not publicly. Internally. Your brain keeps track. It learns. My word doesn't mean much. That's identity erosion. And once that happens, confidence disappears. Because confidence isn't built from thinking. It's built from proof. Small promises, kept daily. That's how self-trust is formed. A disciplined man doesn't say much. He doesn't need to. Because he knows. If he decides something, it gets done. And over time, that quiet consistency becomes unshakable power. A man who controls himself needs nothing from the world. If this spoke to you, subscribe to Silent Stoic. So every day, you become stronger and more composed. Now tell me, what is one thing you will control starting today?